I'm sitting across from my son, Brandon, and he's asking me for $2 million. $2 million. He says it like it's nothing, like we talk every day, like 18 years of silence never happened. Hes 40 years old now, wearing a designer suit that's seen better days, and his hands won't stop moving. Nervous energy. Hes telling me about his luxury car dealership, about 50 employees whole lose their jobs, about his family, about how much he needs this loan. But all I can hear are the words he said to me 2 decades ago in that restaurant parking lot. Not worth knowing. Those 3 words burned themselves into my soul. And now he sits here in my modest office, pretending none of it happened, calling me Dad, like the title still means something. 20 years ago, I was just Wade, a construction foreman in Toledo, Ohio. Nothing fancy. I made $55,000 a year, had calloused hands that no amount of soap could get completely clean, and wore steel-toed boots that left red marks on my ankles by the end of every shift. My wife Patricia and I had been married for 22 years, and every single day of those years had been built around one thing: our son Brandon. We gave that boy everything we had. When he got accepted to Ohio State University to study business, Patricia cried for an hour straight, happy tears. Our son, the first in either of our families to go to a 4-year college. We took out a second mortgage on our little house. I started working overtime, pulling 60 and 70-hour weeks. Patricia took a part-time job at the grocery store on top of her work as a school secretary. We sent Brandon money every month, made sure he never had to work during school, told him to focus on his studies and building his future. His sophomore year, everything seemed fine. He'd come home for holidays, tell us about his classes, show us his grades. We were so proud. But junior year, something shifted. He started dating this girl named Courtney. Her father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across the Midwest, 7 locations, the kind of wealth that made our little life look like nothing. Brandon started changing in small ways at first. He'd correct my grammar when I spoke. He stopped wanting Patricia to pack him homemade cookies to take back to campus. He bought new clothes, expensive ones we knew we hadn't paid for. When we'd visit campus to take him to dinner, he'd meet us off campus, never at his dorm. Said it was more convenient. We believed him because we wanted to. Then came Thanksgiving of his junior year. Courtney's family invited him to spend the holiday at their estate in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. Brandon called and told us not to come to campus anymore. He said it was inconvenient, that he was busy, that he'd see us at Christmas. Patricia's face when she hung up that phone. He'll never forget it. She tried to smile, said he was just growing up, becoming independent. But I saw the hurt in her eyes. I noticed things but said nothing. What was I supposed to do? He was 20 years old, finding his way in the world. I remembered being young, wanting to impress people, wanting to be more than what I came from. I figured it was a phase. He'd grow out of it, come back to us when he matured a little. Then February came. Patricia had been feeling tired for months. We thought it was just the extra work hours. But when she started losing weight and couldn't keep food down, I made her go to the doctor. Stage 3 breast cancer. The doctor said it with sympathy, but also with that look, that careful professional look that told me everything I needed to know. This was bad, really bad. I called Brandon immediately, told him about his mother, about the cancer, about how scared we were. He said he'd come home that weekend. Promised. Friday came, Saturday came. No, Brandon. I called his cell phone over and over. Finally, Sunday afternoon, he answered. I could hear music in the background, people laughing. He said Courtney's family had invited him skiing in Aspen, said it was a huge opportunity to network with her father's business associates, said he couldn't pass it up. I heard a woman's voice in the background, young, cruel. It said something about towny parents, laughter, then Brandon's voice, quick and sharp, telling me he had to go. The line went dead. I stood there in our kitchen, holding that phone, and something inside me cracked. Patricia was upstairs, too weak to come down, asking if that was Brandon, asking when He'd come see her. I climbed those stairs, and I lied to my dying wife, told her Brandon sent his love, that He'd come soon, that he was just finishing up important exams. The next 6 months were hell on earth. Patricia went through chemotherapy that ravaged her body. She lost her beautiful brown hair, the hair I'd run my fingers through for over 2 decades. She lost 40 pounds. Some days she was so weak she couldn't walk from the bedroom to the bathroom without help. The medical bills piled up. Insurance covered 60%. 60. The other 40% fell on us. I worked double shifts. Took every overtime hour offered. Weekends, holidays, didn't matter. I sold my truck, bought a 15-year-old sedan for $800. Sold my fishing boat, the one thing I'd ever owned, just for myself. Cashed out our savings bonds, the ones Wed'd been putting away $20 at a time for 30 years. Every penny went to keeping Patricia alive and comfortable. Brandon never called. Never visited. Complete silence. I left him voicemails every week. "Hey son, just wanted to update you on your mother. She's hanging in there. She asks about you every day. Call when you can." Then the voicemails became more desperate. "Brandon, please. She needs to hear your voice. Just 5 minutes, please." Then they became angry. "How can you do this? She's dying. She's your mother." Then they stopped altogether because what was the point? Patricia kept asking about him. "Where's Brandon? Has he called? Is he doing okay at school?" And I kept lying. "Yes, honey, he called while you were sleeping. He sends his love. He's thinking about you." Every lie felt like swallowing glass. 4 months after the diagnosis, the doctors told me she had maybe 4 more months. The cancer had spread. They could make her comfortable, but that was all. I sat in that doctor's office and something inside me broke completely. My wife was dying and my son had vanished like we never existed. I made a decision. I drove 7 hours to Columbus, didn't call ahead, didn't tell Patricia where I was going, just said I had a work thing. I found Brandon's apartment building, but he wasn't there. His roommate, some kid wearing cargo shorts and a Greek letter shirt, told me Brandon was probably at some restaurant downtown, gave me the name, said Brandon and his girlfriend ate there all the time. Real fancy place. I drove there in my work clothes, hadn't had time to change. Concrete dust on my jeans, paint stains on my shirt. Walked into this restaurant with cloth napkins and candles on every table, and a host in a suit who looked at me like I'd crawled out of a dumpster. I saw Brandon immediately. Corner table. He was with Courtney and 2 older people. Her parents, obviously. They were all dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Laughing, drinking wine, happy. I walked over. Brandon saw me coming and his face changed. Not happiness. Not even surprise. Anger. Pure anger. Like I was a problem he had to deal with. I stopped at their table. The conversation died. Courtney's parents stared at me with barely concealed disgust. Courtney smirked. Actually smirked. Like this was entertaining. I said it quietly. "Brandon, I need you to come home. Your mother is dying. She has 4 months, maybe less. She needs to see you." That's all I said. Simple, direct, true. Courtney's father, this man with silver hair and a watch that probably cost more than my car, made a sound. Something between a laugh and a dismissal. He said something about knowing one's place, about not disrupting private dinners. Brandon's face turned red, but not with embarrassment at his soon-to-be father-in-law's rudeness, with embarrassment at me, at my presence, at my existence. He stood up, looked me right in the eyes, and said words I can still hear in my nightmares. "You've always been an embarrassment. In building a real life here, with real people. You're not worth knowing. Don't contact me again." The table went silent. Then Courtney giggled. Actually giggled. Her mother smiled approvingly. Her father nodded like Brandon had passed some kind of test. Brandon pulled out his wallet, took out $100 bill, and handed it to me. For gas. Consider it payment for everything. We're done. I stood there. I don't know for how long. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what had just happened. Security came. A young guy, looked uncomfortable. Asked me to leave. Said I was disturbing the guests. I walked out like a ghost. I made it to my car in the parking lot, sat in the driver's seat, and I cried. 52 years old, grown man, sitting in a parking lot crying like a child. I looked back at the restaurant through the windows. Brandon was back at the table. They were all toasting champagne glasses, laughing. Brandon looked directly at me through that window, made eye contact, and deliberately turned his back. I drove home. 7 hours. Didn't remember a single mile of it. Got home at 2 a.m. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Maybe there was still some piece of my son left inside that stranger. The service started. The seat stayed empty. It stayed empty through the prayers, through the eulogies, through the burial. I stood at her grave as they lowered her casket and stared at that empty space where my son should have been. Brandon didn't come, didn't send flowers, didn't send a card. Nothing. Silence. I fell apart after that. Completely apart. Couldn't focus at work. Made mistakes. Dangerous mistakes on a construction site. My boss, decent guy, tried to be understanding. Gave me a month off. But when I came back, I was worse. Eventually, they demoted me from foreman back to regular crew. Cut my pay. I understood. Couldn't have someone unreliable in a leadership position. People could get hurt. I moved through life like a zombie. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Stopped seeing friends. Stopped doing anything. Just existing, not living. My co-workers, Frank and Jerome, started dragging me out for beers after work on Fridays. Didn't ask. Just showed up at my house and wouldn't leave until I came with them. Frank was 55, been a carpenter for 30 years, had hands like leather. Jerome was 48, electrician, always had some joke ready. They never pushed me to talk, just sat with me, drank cheap beer, watched whatever game was on the bar TV. One night, about 8 months after Patricia died, I got drunk. Really drunk. The kind of drunk where all the walls you've built come down. And I told them everything. About Brandon, about the restaurant, about Patricia dying asking for him, about that empty seat at the funeral. I cried in that bar booth. 2 grown men sat there and let me cry, and didn't say a word of judgment. When I finally stopped, Frank leaned back and said something he'll never forget. Best revenge is building something so big they'll choke on their own spit when they see it. Jerome nodded. Said, "You're a smart guy, Wade, smarter than you give yourself credit for. You notice things. Use that." I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Frank's words kept running through my head. Build something. But what? I was a construction foreman. Now I was just a guy with a hammer and a debt pile and nothing to show for 52 years of life. But I started noticing things at work. Really noticing. Every construction site was chaos. Ordering materials was a nightmare. Contractors used phones, faxes, emails, spreadsheets, all disconnected. Nothing talked to anything else. Suppliers were frustrated too. Orders got lost. Deliveries came wrong. Everybody blamed everybody else. Thousands of dollars wasted on every single project because nobody could communicate efficiently. I started sketching ideas on napkins at the bar. A system. Software. Something that connected contractors and suppliers in real time. Let them see inventory, place orders, track deliveries, manage invoices, all in one place. I didn't know anything about technology. Couldn't code. Barely knew how to use email, but I knew construction inside and out. I knew what people needed because I'd lived the problem for 30 years. I used my last $12,000 in savings, found a kid named Austin at the community college, computer science major, needed money for tuition. Offered him $5,000 to build a basic prototype. He said yes. We met at coffee shops. He'd explain what I wanted. He'd build it. We'd test it. Fix it. Test it again. Took us 2 years of nights and weekends. I called it BuildStream. Then my construction company went bankrupt. Economy crashed. Company folded. I was 52 years old, unemployed, no prospects, skills that nobody seemed to want anymore. My landlord threatened eviction. I had $300 to my name. Austin called me that same week. Said a small local contractor he knew wanted to try BuildStream. Would pay $500 a month for it. $500. It would cover rent. Barely. It'd have to live on nothing. No safety net. No backup plan. I was too old for this. Too tired. Too broken. The smart thing would be to give up. Find some job somewhere. Stock shelves. Drive a truck. Something stable. But I thought about Patricia. About Frank's words. About that $100 bill Brandon had given me. That I'd kept in my wallet every single day like a scar I needed to see. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Me and Austin, driving my beat-up sedan, sleeping in the car to save on hotels. I'd print flyers on the library computer, stand in a corner with a folding table and a hand-written sign. BuildStream, software for real contractors. By real contractors. People laughed at me. This broken-down former foreman in work boots trying to sell software. They'd take my flyers and throw them away 5 feet later. But some people didn't laugh. Some people listened, tried it. Those people became believers. 10 clients, 20, 50. Revenue trickled in, barely enough to survive. Austin and I worked 100-hour weeks, fixed bugs, added features, listened to what users needed, built exactly that. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, just solving real problems for real people. I taught myself business management from library books. Read everything. Marketing, accounting, operations, negotiation. Sat in that library until closing time every night, taking notes in spiral notebooks. I was 54 years old, learning things I should have learned at 20. We hit 100 clients, then 300. Revenue crossed $500,000 a year. I finally paid myself a salary. $28,000. It felt like a fortune compared to what I'd been living on. I rented a small office, 1 room. Austin and I hired 2 more developers. College kids like Austin had been. Hungry, willing to work for equity and the belief that we were building something real. BuildStream grew. 500 clients across Ohio and Michigan. Revenue hit $2 million annually. I hired a real salesperson, guy named Gary who'd been a contractor himself before a back injury ended his career. He understood the product because he'd lived the problems it solved. His first year, he brought in 300 new clients. I finally moved into a real apartment. Nothing fancy. Just a place where I didn't share a bathroom. Bought a couch that wasn't from Goodwill. Started eating actual meals. But I still drove that same old sedan. Still wore work boots. Still lived simply because I remembered being broke too clearly to take anything for granted. Personally, I was empty. Had a few dates. Nice women, but I couldn't connect with anyone. Patricia's memory was too strong. Everything reminded me of her. Songs on the radio, restaurants we used to go to. The way spring smelled. I'd start to tell a story and realize halfway through that only Patricia would understand why it was funny. The loneliness was suffocating. And I thought about Brandon every single day. Couldn't help it. Wondered what he was doing. If he ever thought about us. About his mother. About that empty seat at her funeral. One weak moment, I looked him up online, found his social media, photos of him managing one of his father-in-law's luxury car dealerships. Beautiful house, 2 kids, smiling wife. The perfect life Head sold his soul for. It hurt worse than the disowning. Because he looked happy, like throwing us away had been the right choice. Like Head calculated the cost and decided we weren't worth keeping. I deleted my search history and threw myself deeper into work. Work didn't hurt. Work had answers. Work made sense. BuildStream kept growing. 1,000 clients, 2,000, 5,000. We expanded beyond Ohio and Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Pennsylvania. The software worked. It saved people money and time. Word spread through the construction community. That foreman, who built that software that actually works, not some Silicon Valley thing that doesn't understand the real world. Something built by someone who'd swung a hammer and read blueprints and knew what it meant to finish a project on time and under budget. Revenue hit $10 million annually, then 20, then 30. I hired more people, always former construction workers when I could. People who'd been laid off or injured or just needed a second chance. Built a team of 30 employees. Austin became my chief technology officer. Gary became head of sales. We moved into a real office building. Not fancy, but real. Then the offers started coming. Companies wanted to partner, wanted to buy us, integrate BuildStream into their systems. The first big offer came from a national construction management firm. They wanted BuildStream for all their contractors nationwide. 20,000 new clients instantly. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Built something from nothing while living on peanut butter and people's laughter. It'd build this my way or not at all. 3 months later, that same firm's biggest competitor called, made the same offer. 25,000 clients, 60% ownership. My lawyer literally begged me to take it. I gave them the same answer. License or nothing. They walked away too. Word spread through the industry. Wade can't be bought. Wade won't sell. Some people thought I was stubborn, stupid, letting ego destroy opportunity. But contractors, the actual users, they heard something different. They heard that BuildStream wasn't going to sell out to corporate interests, wasn't going to change into something that didn't serve them, wasn't going to become another tool designed by people who'd never held a drill. The user base exploded. 10,000 clients, 20,000, 30,000. We expanded to all 50 states. Every contractor knew someone using BuildStream. Revenue hit $40 million a year. I finally bought a house. Nothing crazy. 3 bedrooms in a quiet Toledo suburb. Fixed it up myself on weekends. Felt good to use my hands again. Reminded me of who had been, who I still was underneath the business owner. I was 68 years old, wealthy on paper, but I still drove myself to the office every morning, still walked the floor, still talked to customers, still answered support emails sometimes when I couldn't sleep. Started a scholarship fund, the Patricia Wade Memorial Scholarship for Children of Construction Workers. Gave away $2 million over 5 years. Helped 300 kids go to college. Kids whose parents had calloused hands and steel-toed boots and loved their children enough to sacrifice everything. Frank and Jerome retired. I made sure they had generous pensions disguised as consulting fees. They'd saved my life in that bar booth. Least I could do was make sure their final years were comfortable. We still got beers on Fridays sometimes. Didn't talk about business. Talked about fishing and grandkids and how the Tigers were doing. Normal things, human things. Then the big offer came. A Silicon Valley tech consortium. Name you'd recognize. They wanted to buy BuildStream outright, $63 million. It'd stay on as a consultant for 2 years. Then retire completely. Austin and the team would become millionaires. Everyone who'd believed in me who'd worked those 100-hour weeks, who'd taken equity instead of salary. They'd all be set for life. I thought about Patricia, wished she could see this, see that the broken construction foreman had built something that mattered, something that helped people. Something worth $63 million. I accepted the deal. The sale was announced in all the construction industry publications. Buildstream acquired for $63 million. Local success story, the Toledo newspaper called. Wanted to do a feature. From foreman to millionaire, local man sells company for $63 million. I didn't want the attention, but the reporter was persistent. Nice woman. Said it was an inspiring story. People needed inspiring stories. I did the interview at my house. She asked about the journey, about building the company, about what I'd do next. I told her the truth, about starting with nothing, about the contractors who'd believed in me, about Austin and the team, about the scholarship fund. Then she asked about my family, if I had anyone to share this success with. I paused, thought about lying, making something up, but I was too tired for lies. Told her about Patricia, about building everything to honor her memory. My voice cracked. Had to stop talking for a minute. The reporter, professional but kind, waited, didn't push. When I could speak again, I said everything I'd built was because of Patricia. Because Shed believed I was worth something even when I didn't believe it myself. The article ran on the front page of the local section. Photo of me in my office, looking older than I felt. The story spread. Social media picked it up. One of those feel-good things people share. Underdog makes good. Hard work pays off. American dream alive and well. I got emails from strangers. Congratulations. Inspiring. You earned it. I appreciated them, but it all felt hollow. Who was I sharing this with? The house was quiet. The success was empty. Patricia was gone. Brandon was gone. I'd won, but I was alone. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Talked about how Head always thought about reconciling, how Head made mistakes in his youth, how time had given him perspective, how Head grown, how Head changed. Said he had 2 children now, my grandchildren, who would love to meet me. Pulled out his phone, showed me photos. 2 kids, boy and girl, cute, smiling. Then the real reason came out. Always does. His luxury car dealership was failing. Economy was tough. Competition was fierce. Head made some bad investments. Expanded too fast. Now he was in trouble. 50 employees who'd lose their jobs if he couldn't turn it around. He needed capital. Just a loan. $2 million. Head pay it back with interest. Had a whole business plan. 5-year projection. Everything laid out. Very professional. Very convincing. If you didn't know who you were listening to. He called me Dad, repeatedly. Each time felt like a knife. Talked about family. About blood. About how family helps family. About how wed wasted too much time apart. About how this could be a new beginning. For both of us. He was good. Convincing. Almost believable. If I hadn't lived the last 18 years, I might have fallen for it. I let him finish. Sat there quietly. Let him say everything Head practiced. Everything he thought would work. When he finally stopped talking, waited for my response, I asked him one question. Did you come to your mother's funeral? He froze. Face changed. The prepared speech vanished. Stammered. Well, it was a difficult time. I was going through things I couldn't handle. I interrupted. Did you come? Yes or no? He whispered. No. His voice barely audible. Did you ever call her? Visit her while she was dying? Silence. Then, no. But I was young and confused in Courtney's family. I cut him off again. Get out. His face crumbled, then reformed into something uglier. Anger. Desperation. You owe me this. I'm your son. You're rich now. 2 million is nothing to you. Nothing. You made $63 million. 63. And you can't help your own blood? What kind of father are you? I stood up. Voice quiet. Steady. Sit down. Something in my tone made him obey. He sat. I walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot, the city beyond, gathered my thoughts, then turned back to him. Listen to me. For once in your life, listen. Brandon started to speak. I held up my hand. He stopped. I told him everything, every detail of the 18 years Head missed, painted him a picture he couldn't look away from. Your mother's chemotherapy. How she vomited for hours after every treatment, how her hair came out in clumps, how she cried not from pain but from losing her dignity, how she asked about you every single day. Where's Brandon? Is he okay? Does he know I love him? How I lied to her because the truth would have killed her faster than the cancer. The funeral. That empty seat. How I kept looking at the door, hoping, praying, even after everything, that maybe you'd walk in, that maybe some part of you still cared. How I stood at her grave and you weren't there. How her sister asked where you were and I had to say I didn't know. The years after, living in that studio apartment, eating ramen, building Buildstream and coffee shops because I couldn't afford an office, working 100-hour weeks because what else did I have? Sleep meant dreams and dreams meant pain. The contractors who laughed at me, the people who said I was crazy, too old, too uneducated, too blue-collar to build something that mattered. Every step of the climb, every small victory, every setback, every moment I wanted to give up but didn't, because giving up meant you'd been right, meant I really wasn't worth knowing. So I kept going out of spite, out of stubbornness, out of the need to prove that the man you threw away was worth something. Brandon tried to interrupt, made excuses about Courtney's family, about their influence, about being young, about pressure. I cut him off. You were 20 years old. Not 12. You made choices, adult choices. You chose a girl and her money over your dying mother. Don't hide behind youth. Plenty of 20-year-olds managed to love their parents. He changed tactics. Said Head wanted to reach out, had been too ashamed, too guilty, didn't know how to bridge the gap after so long. I asked him, ashamed enough to stay away but not ashamed enough to avoid asking for millions. He flushed, voice rising. I'm your blood. Family helps family. You said that yourself. You taught me that. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a weathered $100 bill in a plastic sleeve, the same bill Head given me in that restaurant parking lot 18 years ago. Laid it on the desk between us. Remember this? For gas. Consider it payment for everything. We're done. Those were your exact words. Brandon stared at the bill, face going pale, memory flooding back. I could see it in his eyes, the restaurant, his anger, his embarrassment, my tears. I said quietly, You paid me off. You said we were done. I'm simply honoring your wishes. He reached for the bill, pulled his hand back, looked at me. Wade, Dad, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please. I'm not asking for the money anymore. I need forgiveness. I need you. Please. I sat back down, looked at him, really looked at him, saw the desperation, the fear, the regret, maybe even genuine remorse. But I also saw calculation, the performance, the manipulation. He was good at it, always had been. I told him he'd known about his situation for months. His face changed. Confusion. What? I explained. Gary, my head of sales, Had a friend who worked at Brandon's dealership. Word travels in industries. People talk. Id heard the dealership was failing. Bad decisions. Overexpansion. Luxury inventory. Nobody wanted during a recession. A general manager who'd been embezzling that Brandon had ignored because confronting problems wasn't his strength. Id actually considered helping. Anonymously. Send some money through a shell company. Save the dealership without Brandon knowing it came from me. Because despite everything, he was still my son. Still that little boy Id taught to ride a bike and throw a baseball. But then Id dug deeper, hired a private investigator. Needed to know what I'd be supporting. Brandon's face went from pale to gray. The investigator had been thorough. Found out Brandon had divorced Courtney 3 years ago. Her father's business had collapsed. Fraud charges. Arrested. Lost everything. Suddenly, Brandon wasn't part of that wealthy world anymore. Suddenly, he was just a guy with a failing dealership and no safety net. Courtney had left him, taken almost everything in the divorce. Brandon was on his 3rd marriage now. The grandchildren in those photos? Not biologically his. They were his current wife's, kids from her previous marriage. Had burned through family after family. Chasing money. Chasing status. Never satisfied. Never settling. Always looking for the next opportunity, the next upgrade. The investigator had interviewed people from Brandon's life. Former friends, ex-wives, co-workers. They all told the same story. Brandon talked about me, called me trailer trash, said he'd come from nothing, been embarrassed by his origins, had to overcome the disadvantage of a blue-collar father, said it like I was a burden head heroically risen above. Brandon collapsed, not physically, but something inside him broke, started crying, real tears, not manipulation, actual grief. Admitted everything was true. Said he'd become exactly what Courtney's family had molded him into. Said he'd lost himself, become someone he hated. Someone Patricia would be ashamed of. Said he'd been miserable for years, empty. Despite the wealth he'd married into. Despite the cars and the house and the image. All of it hollow. He begged. Not for money now, for forgiveness, for a relationship, for a chance to make it right. Said he couldn't undo 18 years, but he could try to build something new. Said he wanted to be a better person. Wanted his stepchildren to have a grandfather who actually showed up. Wanted to learn how to be the man his mother had thought he could be. I sat there, listened, watched him break down. Part of me, the father part that never dies no matter what your kids do, wanted to forgive him instantly. Wanted to hug him and say it's okay and pretend none of it had happened. But I thought about Patricia, about that empty seat, about 18 years of silence, about not worth knowing. I said, I'm not giving you $2 million. I'm not giving you anything. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. The dealership is going to fail. That's not a punishment. That's a consequence. You made bad decisions. You ignored problems. You chased appearance over substance. Actions have results. You're going to experience those results. But I don't want 50 innocent employees to suffer for your mistakes. They didn't do anything wrong except trust you. I've already contacted a business turnaround specialist, woman named Diana, best in the Midwest. I'm funding her to go into your dealership. She'll assess what can be salvaged. Help employees find new positions. Transition the business to new ownership if possible. The workers will be protected. You will lose everything, as you should. You'll experience what I experienced, what your mother experienced. Maybe it'll teach you what 18 years of comfort couldn't. Brandon started to speak. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I've established a foundation. The Patricia Wade Memorial Foundation for Construction Families. $10 million. It provides scholarships, emergency medical funding, business microloans to construction workers and their families. People like we used to be. Austin's running it. Your mother believed education and opportunity could change lives. This foundation is her legacy. Real, tangible, helping real people. You can have one thing from me. Not money. A job. There's a construction crew that works with one of Buildstream's clients. They need laborers. $42,000 a year. Basic work, physical work. You'll show up at 6 in the morning. You'll work until 4 in the afternoon. You'll get dirty. Your hands will blister. Your back will hurt. You'll come home exhausted. Just like I did for 30 years. If you take that job, if you stick with it for 2 full years without quitting, if you actually try, actually show up, actually do the work, then, only then, he'll consider having a relationship with you. Your mother believed in second chances after people proved they'd changed. I'm going to honor that belief. But you'll prove it through action, not words, not promises. Action. Brandon sat in silence. Long silence. Looked at the $100 bill on the desk. Looked at me. Looked at his hands. Manicured. Soft. Hands that had never done real work. He asked quietly, "Why would you even offer this? After everything I did? Why not just destroy me completely? You have the power, the money, the connections. You could make sure I never work again. Why give me anything? Because I'm not you. I don't abandon people, even people who've abandoned me. But I also won't be used. Won't be an ATM. Won't enable you to keep being the person you've been. You want back in my life? You earn it, the way I earned everything I have. Through work, through showing up, through proving you mean what you say. That's the offer. Take it or leave it. But this conversation is over either way." Brandon stood up, nodded slowly, didn't say anything, walked to the door, stopped, turned back, said, "Thank you," then left. I sat in my office alone. Didn't know if he'd take the offer. Didn't know if I'd ever see him again. But I'd said what needed to be said. Done what Patricia would have wanted. Given a chance. Not an easy chance. Not a comfortable chance. But a real one. 3 days later, Sharon told me someone named Brandon had called the foundation office. Asked about the construction job. My heart jumped. But I told Austin to handle it. Treat Brandon like any other applicant. No special treatment. No easy path. If he wanted this, he'd have to earn it like everyone else. Austin called Brandon in for an interview. Treated him professionally. Asked about his experience, his commitment, his understanding of what the job entailed. Brandon apparently answered honestly. Said he had no construction experience. Said he'd failed at everything he'd touched. Said he needed to learn how to work, how to be reliable, how to be someone worth knowing. Austin hired him. $42,000 a year. Start date in 1 week. 6 months passed. I received monthly reports from the crew foreman where Brandon worked. Guy named Tommy. Former Marine. Didn't take nonsense from anyone. His reports were brief. Professional. Brandon shows up on time. Works hard. Struggles with the physical demands but doesn't complain. Keeps to himself mostly. Respectful. No issues. I never contacted Brandon. Wanted to see if he'd last. If he'd quit when the novelty wore off, when the reality of waking up at 5 in the morning in winter to dig ditches set in. When his back hurt so bad he couldn't straighten up. When his hands cracked and bled from the cold and the work. When people asked what he did for a living and he had to say laborer, would he stick it out or would he break? 1 year passed. Tommy's reports stayed consistent. Brandon's here, doing the work, getting better at it, still quiet, still respectful. The crew likes him. He helps the new guys, stays late if we need him, no complaints. I read those reports and felt something I hadn't felt in 18 years. A tiny spark of hope. I was at the foundation office one afternoon. We were reviewing scholarship applications. 50 kids applying for 20 spots. reading their essays about their parents' sacrifices, about wanting to build better lives, about understanding the value of hard work because they'd watched their parents come home exhausted every night but still show up the next morning. These kids got it, understood what mattered. The foundation had public hours. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. I can't bring Mom back or give you back what I took, but I'm trying to become someone she would have been proud of, someone you might be able to forgive someday. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. My eyes filled with tears, actual tears. Haven't cried since Patricia's funeral. But reading those words, seeing him standing there in work clothes, hands calloused, face weathered, something broke inside me, or maybe something healed. I called after him. Brandon, wait. We sat in the foundation office for 3 hours, just talking, really talking. For the first time in 20 years, Brandon didn't make excuses, didn't minimize what Head done, spoke about the construction job, how it had humbled him, how Head remembered my hands looking the same way, blistered, scarred. How Head never understood what Id sacrificed until he felt it in his own body. Talked about his co-workers, how they had more integrity than anyone had known in his previous life, how they showed up, helped each other, didn't stab each other in the back for promotions, how Tommy had taken him aside one day, told him he was doing good work, that Head heard Brandon came from money, that he respected him for starting over, how much that simple validation had meant. Talked about visiting Patricia's grave every Sunday for 6 months, sitting there, talking to her, apologizing, telling her about his week, about learning to use a circular saw, about blisters and sore muscles and small victories, about trying to become the son Shed deserved, how he hoped wherever she was, she could see him trying. Talked about therapy, about trying to understand why Head become what Head become, about the shame and the need for validation and the emptiness of chasing other people's approval, about learning to find worth in showing up, in doing good work, in being reliable. Simple things. Hard things. I listened, really listened, heard the change in his voice, the humility, the self-awareness, the genuine remorse, not the performance from 6 months ago. Something real. Something earned through 6 months of hard work and honest self-reflection. When he finished talking, I said, "You've got 6 more months on our deal. Finish them, then we'll have dinner. Just dinner. Well, start there." Brandon's eyes filled with tears. Can I hug you?" I hesitated. 18 years of pain between us. 18 years of abandonment and lies and cruelty. But also 18 years of being his father. Of remembering the little boy who'd run to me when he scraped his knee. Who'd wanted me to read him bedtime stories. Who'd believed I could fix anything. I opened my arms. We hugged, both crying. 18 years of pain flowing out. Not healed, not forgotten, but beginning to heal. Beginning to forgive. Not because forgiveness was easy, but because change was real, because effort mattered, because second chances given to people who earned them honored the people we'd lost. 2 years later, present day. Brandon completed the 2 years, then stayed with the construction crew by choice for another year. Eventually moved into a management role at a different construction company, but stayed humble, stayed grounded, remembered what work felt like, what sacrifice meant. We have dinner once a week now. Nothing fancy. Just a local diner. Talking, catching up, building something new. He introduced me to his stepchildren. They call me Grandpa Wade. Good kids, respectful. Brandon's teaching them things. About work, about integrity, about showing up. about how easy it is to lose yourself chasing things that don't matter. They listened to him. Has become someone worth listening to. The relationship is different than before, built on reality instead of obligation, on honesty instead of pretense, on what we both learned through pain and loss and hard-won change. It's not the relationship we had when he was young. Can't get that back. But it's real. And maybe real is better than nostalgic. I helped Brandon financially only once. He donated $1,000 to Patricia's foundation. I matched it, dollar for dollar. Not because he needed me to, but because matching funds for the foundation was something I did for all major donors. Had earned the right to be treated like everyone else. That meant more to him than any handout ever could. People ask me if I should have just forgiven Brandon immediately. They say I was too hard on him. That family should forgive unconditionally. That making him work for 2 years was cruel. I understand their perspective. But they didn't live what I lived. Didn't watch Patricia die asking for a son who never came. Didn't sit at a funeral with an empty seat. Didn't spend 18 years wondering what they'd done wrong to make their child hate them so much. Forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. Forgiveness is what you do for yourself. To let go of poison. To stop letting someone's actions control your present. I forgave Brandon before he ever walked back into my life. Had to, or the bitterness would have destroyed me. But reconciliation is different. Reconciliation is what you build together, brick by brick. When someone proves they've changed, when actions match words, when time and effort demonstrate that the change is real. I learned that success isn't about the money in your bank account. It's about becoming someone who keeps their integrity when the world tells you to sell it. Brandon learned that Head sold his for the price of country club memberships and the approval of people who never truly cared about him, who vanished the moment his usefulness ended. Head traded the unconditional love of people who would have died for him for the conditional acceptance of people who wouldn't cross the street for him. Patricia used to say something. Late at night, when we'd talk about raising Brandon, about what we wanted for him, she'd say, "Character is who you are when nobody's watching and nothing's on the line." I built BuildStream on that principle. Helped people because it was right, not because it benefited me. Refused to sell out because integrity mattered more than convenience. And in the end, I helped my son find his character again. Not by making his life easy, but by making him earn his way back. There's a Sunday dinner tradition now. Brandon, his wife, the stepchildren, me. We gather at my house. Nothing fancy, just home-cooked food and conversation. There's a framed photo of Patricia on the table. Always. A tradition we keep. Brandon leads a toast every week. To Mom, and to second chances that have to be earned. I smile. Finally at peace. Finally understanding that the hardest thing I ever did, refusing to enable my son's worst self, was also the most loving thing I could have done. My son disowned me when I needed him most, threw me away like I was garbage, like 30 years of love and sacrifice meant nothing. But in the end, I didn't get my son back by giving him what he wanted. I got him back by teaching him what he needed, by showing him that real love sometimes means saying no, that real family is built on respect earned, not obligation assumed, that coming home requires more than showing up. It requires becoming someone worthy of the home you left behind, and that made all the difference. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to make a tough choice between enabling someone you love and helping them truly change? Have you had to draw a hard line with family, knowing it might mean losing them forever? What would you have done in my position? Would you have helped Brandon immediately or made him prove himself first? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on forgiveness, family, and what real love looks like when it's tested. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own relationships and choices, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding their way through. And share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone struggling with a difficult family situation. Someone trying to decide between the easy path and the right path. Your share might be exactly what they need today. Thank you for listening to my story, for taking this journey with me, for understanding that sometimes the longest way home is also the only way that leads anywhere worth going. I hope you find the courage to make the hard choices that lead to real healing. And I hope you never have to learn these lessons the way I did. But if you do, I hope you remember that it's never too late to start over. Never too late to become who you were meant to be. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.